Major banks in Hong Kong increased their lending rates. Trump accuses China of meddling in U.S. midterm elections.
Hello and a very good evening. For the first time in more than a decade, some of Hong Kong's biggest banks raised their lending rates following moves by the local monetary authority and the US Federal Reserve. As Caleb Long reports, while the move will benefit savers, homeowners with mortgages to pay could be hit in the pocket.
As widely expected, the FOMC raised its policy rate by 25 basis points last night. This morning, the HKMA also adjusted a base rate for the discount window by 25 basis points to 2.5%.
That was the explanation from the head of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, who was outlining the decision behind the rate hike. And the city's financial secretary believes rates will continue to climb.
The super low interest rate environment in Hong Kong probably will finish. Going forward, interest rate will go up. The impact on our asset market has yet to be seen, but this poses high risks to the asset market.
Not long after the HKMA's rate hike, several local banks followed suit and raised their lending rates for the first time since 2006. HSBC took the lead and will raise its prime lending rate by 12.5 basis points to 5.125%, effective from Friday. The bank will also raise its savings rate for Hong Kong dollar deposits by 12.4 basis points to 0.125%. Hang Seng Bank and Bank of China Hong Kong made identical hikes to their prime lending rates, while Standard Chartered announced a rate jump to 5.375%. Meanwhile, an economist offered some advice on the rate hike.
For the public, if they have extra money, they can put the money in time deposit in order to gain more interest. But at the same time, the borrowing cost will also be rising. So just don't borrow as much as before. And also be aware of the risk of the stock market and also the housing market.
Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the US Federal Reserve raised interest rates for a third time this year, signaling confidence in the American economy. It indicated there will probably be one more rate hike this year and forecast economic growth for at least 3 more years. Alan Buckner has that story.
The Fed raised the benchmark overnight lending rate by 0.25 percentage point to a range of 2 to 2.25%.
This action reflects the strength we see in the economy and is one more step in the process that we began almost 3 years ago of gradually returning interest rates to more normal levels.
Powell noted that economic growth remains strong, projected at 3.1% for this year. Unemployment is low at 3.9% in August, and inflation is low and stable. The Fed has dropped its long-used phrase of accommodative, which means favoring low interest rates.
This change does not signal any change in the likely path of policy. Instead, it is a sign that policy is proceeding in line with our expectations. We still expect, as our statement says, further gradual increases.
The Fed foresees 3 more rate hikes next year and 1 in 2020, which would put the overnight rate at roughly 3.4%. That's a half percentage point higher than the Fed's neutral rate, which neither stimulates nor restricts the economy. The rate hike once again drew criticism from President Donald Trump.
I am not happy about that. I'd rather pay down debt or do other things, create more jobs. So I'm worried about the fact that they seem to like raising interest rates.
Powell, who was appointed by Trump earlier this year, said such outside criticism would have no effect on the Fed's policy, and the central bank will remain neutral. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, US President Donald Trump has accused China of seeking to meddle in the November congressional elections. The US leader said Beijing did not want the Republicans to do well because of his tough stance on trade. China rejected Trump's claim, saying it has always maintained a principle of non-interference in other countries' internal affairs.
A day after addressing the United Nations General Assembly, US President Donald Trump chaired a meeting of the UN Security Council. The president took aim at a range of topics, but while his attacks on Iran were expected, Trump made an extraordinary claim against China. Trump accused China of trying to harm Republican Party prospects in the November congressional elections in retaliation for US moves to impose more tariffs on Chinese goods.
Regrettably, we found that China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming 2018 election, coming up in November, against my administration. They do not want me or us to win because I am the first president ever to challenge China on trade. And we are winning on trade. We are winning at every level. We don't want them to meddle or interfere in our upcoming election.
A visibly unsettled Wang Yi hit back. The State Councilor and Foreign Minister rejected Trump's accusations. We did not, do not, and will not interfere in the internal affairs of any country, said Wang. We don't accept any groundless accusations made against China. After the council session, Trump was asked again whether he had proof to support his allegations against China.
Sir, is there a we have evidence. We have evidence. It'll come out. Forward? Yeah, I can't tell you now, but it didn't come out of nowhere, that I can tell you.
Later, Trump referred to a 4-page supplement by Chinese state media in a local Des Moines newspaper, which promoted the benefits of smooth Sino-US trade ties, as proof China was stepping up propaganda efforts in America. Interestingly, Trump made no mention nor responded to ongoing allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will travel to North Korea next month to prepare for a second summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump. This as South Korean President Moon Jae-in praised the progress made towards peace on the Korean Peninsula in his address at the UN General Assembly. Moon thanked both Trump and Kim for their courage in helping to work towards a more peaceful Korea. Moon described this year's peace process as miraculous. The South Korean president has already met Kim 3 times this year, with the prospect of a visit to Seoul by the North Korean leader on the cards. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe agreed on the sidelines of the UN to start trade talks. The talks would ensure that, for now, Japanese automakers are protected from further tariffs. In a joint statement, the two countries said the talks will respect positions of the other government. Trump has made clear he is unhappy with Japan's $69 billion trade surplus with the United States and wants to address the imbalance.
Staying at the United Nations now, and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani accused the United States of trying to overthrow his government. Speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, he accused the Trump administration of economic terrorism and rejected the idea of bilateral talks with Washington. Rouhani said he believes the US will eventually support the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. At the UN Security Council, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said his country is actively working with Iran, China and the EU to keep the nuclear deal in place. He said Washington's withdrawal from the agreement creates a serious threat for Iran's non-proliferation regime. And coming up on the news tonight, Wang Yupman wins his appeal over the glass hurling incident in Lechko. A new system to enhance ambulance first aid services. And Liu Xia makes a public appearance in New York.
Welcome to our lounge. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks very much.
Find calm in over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
And a warm welcome back to TVB News. Former lawmaker Wong Yoke Man today won an appeal against a common assault conviction and had his 2-week jail sentence quashed. That's in relation to his hurling of a glass during a 2014 LegCo question and answer session attended by the then Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying. Christy Lam reports.
Former lawmaker Wong Yoke Man walked free from the High Court this morning after winning his appeal. He was arrested for hurling a glass in 2014 in the direction of the then Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying during a Legislative Council question and answer session. Wong was found guilty of common assault and sentenced to 2 weeks in prison in 2016, but was granted bail pending his appeal. Today, the High Court judge said it was not proven beyond reasonable doubt that Wong had intended to attack Leung. Wong told the court earlier that he was only trying to disrupt order by throwing the glass, which the High Court judge found not untrustworthy. The judge dismissed Leung Chun-ying's argument that he was startled upon hearing the glass breaking behind him. A judge, after reviewing security camera footage, found Leung looking calm at the time, and he only looked at where the glass landed about 2.5 minutes later. The judge added that a lower court had not fully considered the fact that Wong often disrupted order in the LegCo chamber by throwing things on different occasions. She overturned Wong's conviction and quashed the jail sentence handed down earlier by the lower court. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Petrol prices have been rising in the city in recent months, and the Consumer Council admits half of the complaints it's received about auto fuel are price-related. Our Pinky Wong.
Welcome to our lounge. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks very much.
Find calm in over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
Reports.
At this petrol station, the price for unleaded gasoline went up from $16.99 per liter to $17.14 a day. So did the price at petrol stations of other oil companies in the city. This driver says he's noticed a pattern of frequent increase in prices at the pump.
Now it's very high.
The Consumer Council noted that last Friday, Shell Hong Kong Limited led the last round of price increase. That was followed by Caltex, PetroChina, Esso, and Sinopec. That means all 5 dominating oil groups in Hong Kong had adjusted their petroleum pricing. Even though some petrol companies are offering discounts to their members, some drivers said the discount is not enough to make up for the price increase. The Consumer Council noted that in the first 8 months of this year, there was an increase in the number of complaints about fuel year on year, with half of them related to prices. The city's Competition Commission has also received more than 3,200 complaints and inquiries since 2015 about the petrol market. It has yet to confirm the number of cases related to prices. Some drivers hope the government will step in to control petrol prices so that they do not have to pay whatever price set by the oil companies. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
Well, every second counts when it comes to saving lives. Starting from next Thursday, a new system introduced by the Fire Services Department will provide first aid advice on a list of 32 injuries or illnesses. Haley Joe reports.
As soon as a caller reaches out to 999 for an ambulance, the operator will start asking questions and log the patient's condition into a new software. Based on the patient's condition, the operator will immediately offer first aid advice.
On the patient part or the caller part, we assume that they are not professional, they have no medical knowledge, they just need to tell what happened to the patient.
Since May of 2011, the Fire Services Department has been offering first aid advice to callers for the ambulance services on 6 types of conditions. They include bleeding, burns, heat exposure, spasms, dangerously low body temperature, and the fracture of limbs. Starting from next Thursday, the advice will cover 32 types of symptoms, including stomach aches, headaches, allergic reactions, and choking. The department said the newly adopted questioning protocols have been applied internationally for more than 35 years. Any members of the public can use the service easily. While the Fire Services Department now provides first aid advice on a more comprehensive level, but it emphasized that the new system will not impact the arrival time of ambulance. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
Liu Xia, the widow of Nobel Peace Prize winning political dissident Liu Xiaobo, made her first formal appearance since settling in Berlin this summer. Liu was allowed to leave China after 8 years of house arrest while her husband was in prison for inciting subversion. Liu Xiaobo was granted medical parole in June 2017 after being diagnosed with liver cancer. He died less than 3 weeks later. Liu Xia was joined at a press conference in New York by fellow dissident Lao Yiwu. He criticized Western governments for not speaking up in support of Liu Xiaobo. He accused them of being more interested in the Chinese market than human rights. And that's our news.
Thanks for